So just like any Google Suite, when you go into Google Forms, you're going to hit the plus sign. And it's super, super easy to navigate. You're going to type your title. If you want to put a form description, this is a great spot to put instructions. Sometimes if I gave this to the kids, it told them what they were doing next. Just a little bit of information here. So they have a little guidance throughout it. And now you're just creating your questions. The wonderful thing about forms is it gives you a lot of different options on how you want them to answer it. If you want a short answer, if you want a long answer, multiple choice checkbox, drop down, if they needed to upload a file. So this is awesome, even in the professional world. A lot of times if you sign up for conferences and they want you to upload your staff ID or anything like that, they can actually upload a file into Forms, a linear scale. So that's how pretty sure that's how I did my survey at the beginning. So you can kind of rank something 1 through 5. Multiple choice grid, checkbox grid, and you can include the date and time. For the most part, most people are going to use the multiple choice. The checkbox is if you want them to select more than one, or your short answer or paragraph. So for this purpose, I'm going to use multiple choice. And you'll look next to, it says add option 1. And over here, you can actually, this is how I did it with the logo voting. You can actually add an image here too. So I'm just going to use words. If you want to add another option, guess what? You just click on add option right below it. There's a lot of different ways to customize it. If you want it to be required, you need to make sure you've always selected this lever. If not, they can skip the question and submit it without answering it. Sometimes you're going to want to include optional questions at the bottom that they don't have to answer, but in this case, I want them answering it. If you want to get rid of it, the delete is always your little trash can, or if you want to duplicate it. If you're going to have questions that are super similar, they're all going to be multiple choice. Maybe I wanted to do what is your favorite color? What is your favorite drink? What is your favorite food? I'm just replacing one word, so I would duplicate it because that's a whole lot easier than creating a new question. You also have your toolbox over here if you wanted to add a section. So like just a little bit of information. If you wanted to add a video, an image, add a title and description, or your plus sign is your add a new question. That's what you're going to use the most. So let me add, what did you do? Ooh, I should probably spell it right. In this case, I'm not going to be able to use multiple choice because there's no telling what they did this summer. So I'm actually going to do a paragraph so they can really give me a lot of information. They're just going to get to type in whatever they want to here. Now you can add, I really haven't tested the limits of how many questions you could add. So I'm assuming you can add as many as you could possibly want in a Google form. Now you're going to want to click over at your responses tab. This is where after people have responded, you're going to have some results here. If you don't want to accept any more results, you can click this little lever so they can't, even if they have the link, they cannot respond to your form. My favorite thing about forms is if you'll notice, this is your little Google Sheets button. Once you have data in here, you can shoot it all to a spreadsheet. And much like every teacher, if it's in a spreadsheet, you can alphabetize the responses. When we turn it to a quiz, you can get your quiz results off that a whole lot easier than you can just looking at it in forms. And it copies and pastes really, really easy into gradebooks. Also, you can get an email notification if somebody's responded. You can select a destination for the response. You can download it just like an Excel file, or if they started answering before you wanted them to, and it's going bad, you can say, you know what, forget it. I'm going to delete all the responses. We're going to try this again. Another thing that you have in Google Forms, there's a whole lot of things you can change here. You have a way to change your color palette. You can also add a picture. It's going to automatically give you this top purple bar every single time. If you wanted to customize it for like your classroom, you could actually pick a picture to go up there. They have options for you, or you can upload photos. The only problem with uploading photos is that's a really weird size. So you kind of have to play with it for a while to find the right size of picture you want to use. I'm just going to use these lovely jelly beans. Whoops, where'd it go? There it goes. I clicked on my picture. I'm going to click select. And now you see the top of my form does not look like all the rest of it. Also in Google Forms, I didn't mention this at the beginning, you can name your form, but look, just like I showed you with Google Docs, whatever I typed for my title, once I click on Untitled Form, it's automatically going to put there. You can change it if you want to and save it however you want it to be saved. It doesn't matter what your title is. That way you know what it is. If you want to preview it, now this is definitely something I would advise once you're finished. You click your little eyeball. Now you're seeing what it's looking like on their end. As you notice, the required ones, it tells you have the little asterisk next to them, so they know that they have to do it. If they didn't answer this question, I'm going to answer one and try to submit it. Look what it does. This is a required question. I'm going to close out of the preview. The last thing we need to look at in Google Forms is your settings. This is really where you can change it from a survey to a quiz, and we'll go over the quiz in a different video. But this is also where you can add some preferences. If I were sending this out to adults, I might want to collect email addresses. That way, if they answered something that they answered like a technology question or any type of question that I've asked them and I need to reply to it, now I know how to reply to it. Another thing that is huge when you're working with children is limit to one response. You know they're going to go in there and answer it 15 times just because they can to skew your results, especially if you're like voting on something, or if it's when we turn it into a quiz, especially because the last time they take it, that's the results you're going to see. Another thing you want to pay attention to is what the respondents can do. If you want them to be able to go back and edit it, or if you want them to see the summary. So say you're voting on something, they're answering questions, and you want them to see the data that comes back from everybody's, you can click to allow them to see the summary charts at the end. Your settings is really something I would pay attention to, no matter if you're making a survey or a quiz, because there are a lot of things you can change in this menu. So for my sake, I want to limit it to one response, and I want them to include their email addresses. To be completely honest, I don't think I've ever changed anything on this presentation tab. You can show, if it was super long, you can show a progress bar. You could shuffle the question order if it's a quiz. I take that back. The only thing I've ever changed is this message. So after they're finished, I might leave them a different tagline here. And we'll get to the quizzes tab when we're making a quiz. Okay, just like I showed you before when we were doing the little mock survey, you're going to click a blank document. I'm not going to go over all the details like I did from the last one because you know all the options that you have here. I'm going to go ahead and take some time to fill in some information so we can look at it on the response side. I'm going to add a couple of questions. If you'll notice when you're typing, it tries to guess what type of answers you want. I noticed in the first one it didn't, but look, it's kind of popping up some options that it thinks I want, but I don't want their options. I'd like to do multiple choice. Okay, so now that we have a couple of questions in here, And I'm going to go ahead and make them required. Now on the response side, it's going to look a little bit different because this is a quiz that you want automatically graded. So you don't want to have to go back and look at all their responses and see what score they made. So this is when I told you that settings tab is super important. We're going to go to our settings tab. You'll notice it said general. We had presentations and we hadn't gone over the quizzes. So I want you to jump into quizzes. It's all going to be grayed out until you decide I want to make this a quiz. Now you have options. You can release their grade to the students immediately after they submit it. If it was something I wanted them to have immediate feedback on, this is a great option. If it's something that I think I could give them points for, even if they get it wrong, if it's kind of subjective, then I'm going to select, later after I review it. For the most part, I select that. I taught little kids, 4th grade, but still I didn't want them panicking immediately after their quiz. If it's something they were going to have to go back and correct pretty quick, I might let them see their grade, but it just depended on the material. Now, you also have another option. What the respondents can see. If you want them to see the questions they miss, if you want them to see the correct answers, and if you want them to see the point values. For the most part, all of my point values stayed the same with all of the questions. Every once in a while, I might have questions at the bottom where they had to type in their answer and I'd give them more value. But I never thought that it hurt if they saw the point values. I never let them see the correct answers because I was a math teacher and I wanted them to go back and have to rework it if they got it wrong. So these are all your options that it's going to automatically turn it into a quiz. So you're going to click save. Now it gets a little bit different. Oh, not quizzes. Now you're going to have to go in there and make an answer key. So if you'll look down below, we're going to click on answer key. And it's going to ask you to choose the correct answer. Well, I know the correct answer is 16. And I'm going to let this be worth 50 points. If you needed to add answer feedback, so if they get it right, you can tell them good job, or at the end, if they get something wrong, you can give them feedback as well. So now when I'm clicked up in this top question, I'm going to click on answer key for it too, and I'm going to select the right answer, and I'm going to give it points. You'll notice that it's automatically going to say 0 points. So if you don't add the points, they're not going to get any credit for it. If you always watch right up here, this total points, to make sure you are hitting your 100 if you want 100, or if you need more points than that or less points than that, make sure that's totaling to what you want it to be. Once you've selected the right answer on both of them, remember it's automatically getting saved. You are going to share it just like you would anything in the Google Suite. You can send it. You can type their emails in. You can get the link to where you're just copying it to an email or send it out. Or if you wanted to embed it in an email, and what that means is instead of them clicking on the link to get to it, let me close out of this. When they go to their email, they will actually see this Google form like on the email page. They don't have to follow a link. They actually see the form that they've created right there for them. Another option is, now that this is saved, if you want to add it to your Google Classroom, just like we're going to go over here in a minute, you can grab anything from your Google Drive to add to your classroom super easy. I think I have covered everything on how to make it a quiz. I didn't want to repeat a lot of the settings that we did in the first Google Forms, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.